Chicago's most feared mafia boss thought he controlled everything: power, loyalty, life, and death. But one unexpected message shatters his world, forcing him to confront a dangerous secret he thought was long buried. With enemies closing in, a vengeful brother plotting, and time slipping away, Dominic must face his darkest past to protect the future before it's too late. Hi, I'm Selena, and welcome to Dark Love Stories, where passion, suspense, and dangerous love collide. Tonight, I have a story that will take you deep into the heart of crime, betrayal, and a love that refuses to die. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our family, because in this world of dark romance, you won't want to miss a single twist. The Salvatore mansion throbbed with the low hum of Christmas music, twisted through subwoofers, the kind of rich, elegant noise only a mafia kingpin could make sound threatening. Outside, snow blanketed Chicago in a clean white lie, masking the blood and secrets hidden beneath. Inside, Dominic Salvatore stood on the balcony overlooking his empire, men in designer suits laughing too loudly, glass clinks echoing like fragile promises, and Christmas lights draped across black marble like chains. Dominic wasn't celebrating, he was calculating. Every move tonight was preparation for the heist that would cripple the Mexican cartel and crown him as the undisputed ruler of Chicago's underworld. Vito approached with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Everything's set, boss. Trucks are in position. Midnight's ours." Dominic nodded once, expression unreadable. His grip on the whiskey glass was steady, but his mind churned behind calm, icy eyes. Tonight should have been the last night he needed to fear enemies creeping out of shadows. The last night he had to wonder if the past he buried would claw its way back up. He didn't notice the burner phone vibrating on the table until the third buzz. A private line only 3 people had access to, and 2 were dead. A pulse of tension snapped through him. He picked up the phone. One image filled the screen. Sophia. His Sophia. Pale, exhausted, hair tangled against a hospital pillow, holding a newborn. His daughter. The glass fell from Dominic's hand and shattered across the marble floor, but he didn't feel it. His throat tightened, breath locked in his chest. The world around him blurred, music, chatter, the metallic scent of rich men pretending they were safe. None of it mattered anymore. He stared at the photo again, jaw clenching until it hurt. Sophia had given birth, alone, without him. A wave of guilt hit like a wrecking ball. He had left her months ago, faking his death after cartel threats escalated, thinking disappearing would protect her. Believing sacrifice made him noble. But seeing her fragile and alone in a hospital bed carved a new truth into him. He hadn't saved her. He had abandoned her. "Boss?" Vito's voice wavered, sensing the change in air. "What happened?" Dominic didn't answer. He stormed across the room, ripping the front door open. Snow blasted into the mansion, cold enough to bite bone, but he welcomed it because it numbed the rage brewing inside. "Cancel the heist," he said. Vito froze. "What, Dom? We're minutes away." "I said cancel it," Dominic snapped, voice like a blade. "I'm not losing her. Not tonight. Not ever." He didn't wait for an argument. He got into his black Maserati and tore out of the driveway, tires screaming across snow. The city lights blurred past as he pushed the car faster than was sane, but Dominic had lost sanity the moment he saw that photo. As he approached the hospital, he noticed something else. Federal sedans parked outside. Too many. Not casual patrol, active surveillance. Sophia wasn't just alone, she was being watched. And the anonymous sender of that photo knew it. Dominic parked a block away, grabbed a stolen doctor's coat from the trunk, and slipped into the night. His breath fogged the air, but inside, he burned with purpose. He walked through the hospital's back entrance as if he belonged, shoulders squared, steps certain. Confidence was its own disguise. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Nurses rushed past. Security guards lingered at corners. Dominic moved through it all like a shadow with a pulse. He reached the maternity ward. Then he froze. Two federal agents stood outside a room door, Sophia's room. Cold dread bled through him. Someone had tipped them off, someone close. He forced himself to keep moving, slipping down a side hallway and entering through an alternate door that led into the back section of the recovery rooms. He scanned numbers. Room 214. Her room. His heartbeat slammed against his ribs. He eased the door open. Sophia sat upright, pale and beautiful even in exhaustion, holding a tiny pink bundle to her chest. A soft halo of Christmas lights framed her bed, making her look heartbreakingly fragile. Dominic stepped inside, closing the door behind him. She looked up. Her eyes widened. Shock twisted into disbelief, then into something darker, betrayal, pain so sharp it cut through the room like a wire. "Dominic," she whispered, like the ghost of his name couldn't possibly be real. He took a single step toward her, voice low and raw. "Sophia, I can explain." Her right hand snapped up from under the blanket. A gun. Her hand shook, but her aim didn't. "Don't come any closer." The baby whimpered softly in her arms, unaware of the war raging around her. Dominic's chest tightened at the sound, his daughter's first cry he ever heard. "Sophia," he breathed, hands raising. "You think I would ever hurt you? I faked my death to protect you. And you left me pregnant and alone." Her voice cracked, furious, heartbroken, trembling with months of swallowed pain. "You don't get to walk in here like you didn't destroy me." He stepped forward anyway. She cocked the gun, tears spilling. "Try me," she warned. Footsteps thundered in the hallway. Federal agents. They were getting closer. Dominic's instincts screamed. He could survive bullets, betrayals, even his brother's death, but he couldn't survive losing her again. He didn't have it in him. "Sophia," he whispered fiercely, "put the gun down. If they see me in here, you'll be dragged into a war you can't outrun." Her breath hitched. The agents were seconds away. Their voices carried down the corridor. "Check every room, make sure she's secure." Sophia's grip trembled. Dominic moved, not violently, not to hurt her, but to grab her hand, lower the barrel, and pull her gently toward him. She resisted, breath ragged, torn between shooting him and collapsing into him. He whispered against her ear, "I'm not dying again, not tonight, not without seeing my daughter." Before she could respond, the door handle clicked. The agents were right there. Dominic pushed Sophia behind him just as the door began to swing open. Her breath hitched. His pulse stopped. The agent stepped inside, and Sophia's finger, still wrapped around the gun, tightened against the trigger. The door swung open with the force of authority, but Dominic reacted with the precision of a man who'd lived his entire life outrunning death. He seized Sophia's wrist, guiding the barrel downward as he pulled her behind him, pressing her gently but firmly against the wall. The agents stepped into the room fast, two of them in tactical winter jackets, hands already hovering over their holsters, scanning the bed, the corners, the shadows. Dominic held his breath. The only thing between survival and a firefight was the thin flap of the privacy curtain he ducked behind. Sophia trembled in his grip, torn between the instinct to push him away and the instinct to stay absolutely still. His hand slipped to her mouth for silence, his fingers brushing her warm skin for the first time in months. It felt like touching a memory he'd buried alive. The agent spoke in clipped, businesslike tones, confirming she was alone, noting the cleared windows, updating someone via radio. As soon as they stepped out into the hallway, Dominic didn't hesitate. He pulled Sophia into the supply closet across the room and shut the door behind them, smothering them in darkness and disinfectant. Inside the cramped space, their bodies were pressed together, breaths mingling, heartbeats colliding. Sophia pushed him back with sudden fury, gripping the gun again but not lifting it. "You're supposed to be dead," she hissed, voice shaking with a cocktail of rage and longing. "I saw your car explode. I buried an empty coffin because they couldn't find your body. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Dominic didn't flinch. He waited until her words ran out of breath and met her gaze with brutal honesty. "I did it because the cartel was hunting you. They were going to use you to destroy me. My only way to keep you alive was to disappear." Her jaw clenched. "You didn't trust me enough to tell me." "Because the moment you knew, you would have tried to follow me," he said, stepping closer, lowering his voice, "and they would have killed you first." Her anger cracked, revealing months of grief behind it. Tears shimmered in her lashes, but Sophia blinked them away violently, refusing to show weakness, not to him, not anymore. She pressed her palm to his chest as if testing whether he was real. "You left me pregnant," she whispered. "I woke up alone every day wondering if you'd ever wanted us." Dominic's chest tightened like wire around bone. He cupped her cheek, thumb brushing her tear-stained skin. "Sophia, I wanted you more than I've ever wanted air. I only walked away because I thought giving up my life was the only way to give you one." For a moment, her breath caught, because the man who was once her entire world was speaking in the voice she used to trust more than anything. Then the tension snapped. Sophia surged forward, grabbing his collar, crashing her lips against his in a kiss that was equal parts fury and relief. Dominic gripped her waist, pulling her into him like he'd been starving for her since the day he disappeared. It was messy, heartbreaking, soaked in everything they hadn't said. But as fast as it ignited, Sophia broke away, gasping, her hands trembling against his chest. "Don't think that means I forgive you," she whispered. "I don't even know if I can look at you without falling apart." Dominic pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in. "You don't have to forgive me. Just let me protect you." Heavy footsteps echoed down the hall again, agents patrolling. Dominic straightened, listening sharply. Sophia wiped her tears, pulled her strength back onto her face like armor, and tucked the gun into her waistband. "They think I'm connected to you," she whispered bitterly. "Someone sent them evidence. Someone wants me tied to your crimes." Dominic stiffened. That meant the photo wasn't just a threat, it was bait. Someone wanted him drawn here, wanted Sophia under scrutiny, wanted the newborn vulnerable. His jaw tightened. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." Sophia stared at him like he was insane. "There are agents outside my door. How do you expect us to walk out?" Dominic moved closer, lowering his voice. "By taking advantage of something every hospital fails at: chaos." Minutes later, Dominic triggered the fire alarm using a small device he'd stolen from a cartel tech years ago. The siren shrieked instantly, sprinklers bursting overhead in the hallway. Staff rushed into panic mode, guiding patients out as smoke simulation filled the corridor. Dominic grabbed a spare emergency blanket, wrapped it around Sophia and the baby, and pulled them into the flood of bodies evacuating. The federal agents scrambled, trying to maintain control, but the moment they turned to assist a stumbling elderly man, Dominic maneuvered Sophia into a side stairwell and out a back exit. Snow hit their faces like shards of ice. He scanned the parking lot, spotted an unattended minivan with keys in the ignition, holiday negligence, and shoved the door open for her. Inside the vehicle, Sophia cradled Isabella, rocking her gently, but Dominic could feel her walls rising brick by brick. She wasn't sure she could trust him again, and he wasn't sure he deserved it. He took the wheel, checking mirrors, ready to disappear into the night. That's when he saw it. A black sedan parked across the street, engine running, headlights dimmed, and the driver, leaning forward slightly, watching them, wore a familiar expression Dominic hadn't seen since he was a teenager. Cold eyes, a faint smirk, a scar cutting down one cheek like a knife wound that never healed, a ghost from a different grave. Marco. Dominic's heart stopped. Marco, his brother who'd supposedly died in a cartel explosion years ago, alive, watching Sophia, watching the baby, watching him. The sedan peeled away into the night, tires slicing through snow. Sophia looked up at Dominic's expression, confusion turning to fear. What did you see?" Dominic's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. Someone who's supposed to be dead. A text buzzed on the burner phone, one sentence glowing like a threat from hell. "Miss me, brother." The drive through Chicago's frozen outskirts felt like threading a needle through a storm, silent, tense, and charged with the kind of danger Dominic could taste on the back of his tongue. The city lights were shrinking behind them, swallowed by shadows and snowfall, but Dominic's thoughts were louder than the engine. Marco, his brother, the one he mourned, the one whose death he had carried like a lead coffin in his chest. Seeing him alive, smirking, stalking, hunting, twisted something deep inside Dominic that he didn't even know was still capable of breaking. The image of that scar sliced through his mind like a reopened wound, a wound he never healed from, a wound he thought he buried under power, violence, and the empire he built on top of grief. Sophia sat in the back seat holding Isabella, her eyes flicking up to the rearview mirror now and then, studying Dominic with a fear she was trying to hide. Not fear of him, fear of the shadows circling him. "Dom," she said quietly, "who is Marco?" His grip tightened on the steering wheel. He didn't want to talk about Marco here, in a stolen minivan with darkness pressing in around them, but silence was another kind of lie. And he owed her no more lies. "My brother," he said finally. "The one I told you died in the ambush." Sophia swallowed hard. "You said the cartel killed him. You said you watched him burn." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I watched a warehouse explode. I found what I thought was his watch in the wreckage. I searched through 3 days of rubble. I never doubted he died." The words were gravel in his throat. But he didn't. He played dead better than I did. His knuckles whitened as he stared into the snowy road ahead. Marco had been the closest person to him once, his shadow, his echo, the other half of their childhood loyalty. But something in Marco had always been a darker mirror, more jealousy, more rage, more hunger. Dominic never imagined that darkness would turn into vengeance. Sophia's voice broke through his thoughts, softer, uncertain. "Why would he send me that photo? Why drag me into this?" Dominic glanced at her through the mirror, the intensity in his eyes startling even himself. "Because he knows you're my weakness. Because hurting you is the fastest way to hurt me." Sophia held Isabella tighter, the tiny infant stirring against her chest. "And the baby?" Dominic exhaled through gritted teeth. "She's leverage, a target, a pawn, a message." A sudden flash of headlights appeared behind them, fast, too fast. Sophia stiffened. Dominic checked the mirror and swore under his breath. 2 SUVs swerved into view, slipping onto the icy road with predatory speed. "Hold on." His voice dipped into the lethal calm he only used in gunfights. The SUVs split apart like wolves circling prey. One pulled up beside them, windows tinted, engine roaring. The other closed in behind. Sophia gasped when the first SUV's rear window dropped and a masked man leaned out, lifting an automatic pistol. "Dom!" Dominic jerked the wheel, swerving off the asphalt just as bullets tore through the minivan's side, shattering glass, ripping through the seats. Isabella cried, the sharp, shrill cry of a newborn, overwhelmed by chaos. Dominic felt something inside him snap. He slammed the gas pedal down, fishtailing across the snow, using the terrain as cover. The second SUV rammed their bumper. Dominic fought the wheel, tires slipping. He crossed onto a narrow industrial road, weaving between abandoned warehouses and freight containers. Another burst of gunfire lit the night. Dominic swerved left, forcing the first SUV into a snowbank, metal grinding against ice. It spun out, wheels lifting before crashing sideways. The second SUV kept coming. Dominic spotted a service alley just wide enough for the minivan and cut into it sharply. The SUV tried to follow, too wide. It scraped violently against the brick walls, lost traction, and crashed into a dumpster, disabling it. Dominic didn't watch it burn. He drove until the sound vanished behind them. Only after several minutes of silence did he slow down. Sophia shifted forward, her voice shaking. "You think that was Marco?" Dominic nodded grimly. He always preferred loud greetings. He pulled into the driveway of a safe house, a nondescript 2-story home tucked between abandoned lots. Inside, the air was warm but tense. Vito stood waiting, face pale. Dominic noticed the fear in his eyes before he noticed the guilt. Sophia took Isabella upstairs to calm her, while Dominic pinned Vito with a stare that could strip a man's soul. "You look like you saw a ghost." Vito swallowed. "Boss, something ain't right. Marco, if he's alive, then everything changes." Dominic stepped closer, voice low and cold. "Did you know?" Vito's eyes darted. "Know what?" "That Marco survived." "Dom, I swear—" Dominic grabbed Vito by the collar, slamming him against the wall so hard a picture frame rattled. "Don't lie to me." Vito broke. "He reached out last week. I didn't tell you because I didn't think it was real. I thought it was a cartel trick. I never thought—" Dominic's grip tightened as betrayal burned through him. Vito trembling under his hand was all the confirmation he needed. Marco wasn't just back. He had already been moving pieces, already poisoning the edges of Dominic's world. Upstairs, Sophia's voice echoed faintly, a soft lullaby for Isabella, shaky but soothing. Dominic's chest tightened. The things he cared about most were upstairs, while the things trying to destroy him were closing in from every direction. He shoved Vito away, disgusted. "If Marco contacted you once, he'll do it again, and you're going to answer." Vito's face drained of color. He nodded quickly, terrified. Dominic stepped toward the staircase when a faint vibration cut through the tension. A burner phone, not the one he had taken from the hospital, a different one sitting on the dining table, buzzing insistently. Sophia called down the stairs. "Dom, do you hear that?" Dominic approached the phone, dread curling in his stomach. No one had this number, no one except ghosts. He answered. A distorted voice slid through the speaker like a knife, cold, familiar. "Round 1 was cute," the voice said. "Ready for round 2? Dominic's blood turned to ice. "Marco, if you touch them—" A soft chuckle cut him off. "Oh, brother, I already have." There was a scream upstairs. Sophia. Dominic bolted for the stairs, heart pounding like war drums. Sophia's cry ripped through the house. "Dominic, the baby, she's gone!" Isabella's empty crib sat by the window, the curtains blowing in from an open frame, footprints already fading into the snow outside. The second Dominic heard Sophia's scream, instinct ripped through him harder than gunfire. He took the stairs in 3 strides, crashing into the nursery like a man entering a battlefield rather than a bedroom. The room was a violent stillness, rocking chair tilted, curtains blowing inward from the open window, the cold slicing in like a blade. Sophia stood frozen, arms trembling, staring at the empty crib as if her mind refused to accept what her eyes saw. Dominic crossed the space, grabbed the window frame, and leaned out. Snow fell in fast, sharp flakes. Below, faint footprints trailed across the yard toward the alley, already dissolving under the fresh layer of white. Someone had taken Isabella in less than 30 seconds. Someone who moved like a ghost and understood the house layout perfectly. Someone who wanted Dominic to witness the aftermath. Sophia turned to him, face drained of color. How did they get in without a sound? Dominic didn't answer. His mind was already calculating angles, entry points, timelines. Whoever did this knew exactly when to strike, during the chaos of the phone call. While Dominic's attention had been dragged downstairs, someone else was already upstairs, scooping Isabella from her crib with practiced efficiency. This wasn't random. This wasn't sloppy. This was planned down to the second. And Marco wouldn't risk stepping in personally. Not yet. Meaning he had operatives inside Chicago. operatives with keys, codes, and a map of Dominic's movements. He grabbed Sophia's shoulders, not gently, but not cruelly either. "You need to breathe." She shoved at his chest, hysteria breaking through her voice. "My baby is gone. How do you expect me to breathe?" Dominic forced himself to stay steady. Panic was a weapon, and right now Marco was wielding it with precision. "Listen to me," he said, low and razor sharp. "Whoever took her isn't trying to kill her. If they wanted her dead, they'd have left her here." The words were cruel, but they were true, and they snapped Sophia back into focus. She wiped trembling hands across her face. "Then what do they want?" Dominic answered without hesitation. "Me." Vito staggered into the hallway, clutching the doorframe. His guilt was written across him like a confession. "Boss, I swear, nobody came through the front. I was right there." Dominic cut him off with a glare so lethal, Vito shut up instantly. Dominic walked into the hall, checking every door, every window, every lock. Nothing was forced. No broken glass. No footprints except the ones outside. This wasn't an intrusion. It was an infiltration. Whoever took Isabella walked through the house like they belonged in it. Dominic descended the stairs again, scanning the walls, the vents, the floors, and then he saw it. Near the back door frame, almost invisible, a small magnetic sensor hanging loose, clipped, disabled. Someone with access to the safe house security system had tampered with it. He turned slowly toward Vito, who flinched. "Dom, don't look at me like that. I didn't touch anything." Dominic stepped closer. "Who else had the codes?" Vito swallowed hard. "Only me. And one other." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "Say it." Vito hesitated, then whispered, "Luca." A name that hit Dominic like a fist. Luca, the quiet soldier, the shadow in his operations, the one who never raised his voice but always followed orders, loyal for years, or so Dominic believed. And now, he was missing. His car wasn't outside, his phone was off, and the clipped sensor, the clean precision, fit Luca more than anyone else alive. Sophia appeared behind Dominic, voice low and shaking. "Why would he take my child?" Dominic didn't sugarcoat it. "Because Marco bought him." Sophia covered her mouth, horrified. Dominic grabbed his coat, strapped a gun to his side, and headed for the door. Vito stepped into his path. "Dom, wait! You're not going alone. You'll walk straight into a trap." Dominic didn't stop walking. "Good, because that's where they'll be keeping her." Vito cursed under his breath but followed. "Boss, just say the word. I'll get the boys. We'll storm every warehouse." Dominic cut him off sharply. "You call anyone and she dies. Marco wants me isolated. He wants me desperate. I'm not giving him an excuse to retaliate." Outside, the wind slammed into them, carrying the metallic scent of winter and violence. Dominic crouched near the footprints again. They weren't rushed. They were measured. Whoever carried Isabella wasn't worried about getting caught. That arrogance meant proximity. They didn't travel far. Dominic scanned the dark alley. At the end of the block, tucked beneath a broken street lamp, a black sedan idled. No headlights, no movement, but the exhaust fogged in the cold air, waiting. Dominic's heartbeat sharpened. He motioned for Vito to stay back. "If I drop, you drive Sophia out of this city." Vito nodded, pale. Dominic approached the sedan slowly, hand near his holster. The car didn't move, didn't peel away, didn't flash a threat. It just existed like a challenge. When he reached the driver's window, he tapped the glass with the barrel of his gun. The window rolled down smoothly. The man in the driver's seat wasn't Marco, and he wasn't Luca either. He was worse. Someone Dominic recognized from old photographs, grainy surveillance shots, and memories from a life he tried to bury. A man tied to Marco long before the betrayal. A man Dominic believed rotted in a Mexican prison years ago. And the bastard was smiling. "Evening, Dominic," the man said, voice low and mocking. "You're late." Dominic's gun pressed harder to the glass. "Where is she?" The man simply tilted his head toward the empty passenger seat. A small object sat there, a phone, buzzing. Dominic slowly reached inside and grabbed it. The screen lit up, an incoming video call. The caller ID read only one word, Marco. Dominic's pulse pounded in his skull. He answered. The screen shook for a moment, then stabilized. Marco appeared, smirking, eyes glinting with sick triumph. But Dominic didn't see him. He saw Isabella, in Marco's arms, her tiny body wrapped in a blanket, her face red from crying. Marco leaned closer to the camera, whispering like a serpent, "Brother, if you want her back." He lifted the infant higher, letting her wail fill the speaker. "You're going to do something for me." Before Dominic could respond, Marco added, "And if you refuse..." Marco's expression hardened into something feral. "You might want to say goodbye." Marco turned the camera, revealing a countdown clock glowing behind him. 4 hours. And something strapped to the table next to Isabella that looked unmistakably like a detonator. Dominic stepped away from the idling sedan, the cold night pressing against him like steel armor. Marco's face still burned in his vision, but it was Isabella's cries that carved the deepest wound. 4 hours. That was the window. 4 hours before Marco executed whatever sick plan he'd spent years cultivating in the dark. Dominic didn't waste time panicking. Panic was a luxury reserved for people who could afford to lose. He wasn't one of them. He crossed the yard with a predator's stride, mind slicing through possibilities. Marco wouldn't kill Isabella immediately, not unless Dominic forced his hand. This wasn't about the child. It was about domination, brother against brother, a twisted resurrection of the oath they once swore as boys. Marco wanted to drag Dominic to a battlefield of his choosing, force him onto his knees, and make him watch everything he cared about burn. Dominic wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Sophia rushed out the front door, clutching a blanket around her shoulders. She didn't need Dominic to explain. She saw the murder in his eyes, the resolve lined with terror. "Did he call?" Her voice cracked. Dominic nodded once, sharp and controlled. "He has her." The words obliterated the air between them. Sophia grabbed his jacket with desperate force. "Take me to her. I'm coming with you." Dominic didn't argue. He didn't waste breath telling her it was too dangerous or that she'd slow him down. She was Isabella's mother. Her terror was a weapon in its own right. What mattered was speed, control, discipline. "Inside," he ordered. "We have to plan." She shook her head violently. "There's no time to plan. She's a newborn. She can't survive." Dominic seized her hand. "Listen, Marco wants me alive until the deadline. That's the leash he put around both our throats. If we act sloppy, she pays." Sophia's breath hitched, but she forced herself still. That was what Dominic needed. Her fire restrained just enough to move with him, not against him. Inside the house, Dominic moved with cold efficiency. He cleared the table, spread out maps of Chicago, warehouse districts, cartel storage facilities, abandoned construction sites. Marco favored locations tied to their past, hellholes where blood soaked the walls long before either of them learned to wield power. Dominic circled 16 potential sites in less than 30 seconds. Sophia watched him, trembling but determined. How do you know where he'd take her? Dominic didn't look up. Marco doesn't improvise. He builds altars. He tapped one location, a condemned rail depot on the outskirts. "This one," he muttered. "This is where he'd want to rewrite history." Vito stepped inside, face tight with dread. "Boss, I dug into Luca's last known locations, found a burner ping near that depot an hour ago." Dominic stiffened. Confirmation. Marco was practically inviting him. The bastard wanted Dominic to walk through the front door. Dominic checked the clock. 3 hours, 42 minutes. Enough time to travel, not enough time for backup. "Get the car," Dominic said. "Only you and Sophia come with me. No soldiers, no calls." Vito opened his mouth to argue, but Dominic's expression killed it instantly. They loaded into the SUV, the engine roaring to life, headlights carving through the snowy night. The city blurred past them in streaks of icy light. Sophia sat in the back seat, gripping her hands until her knuckles whitened. Dominic could feel her fear radiating like heat. He spoke without turning. "He won't hurt her yet." Sophia closed her eyes. "You can't promise that." Dominic didn't repeat himself. Promises were useless. Action was the only currency left. The road stretched into the industrial outskirts, the skyline fading behind them. The rail depot loomed in the distance, dark, rotten, a cemetery of rusted metal and forgotten sins. Dominic parked the SUV far enough away to avoid detection and scanned the derelict structures with trained precision. Shadows clung to every corner. Snow muffled the world into a suffocating silence. Vito whispered, "Boss, place looks dead." Dominic shook his head. Marco doesn't stage theatrics unless he wants an audience. He pulled out a small EMP device, disabling exterior cameras silently. Sophia hesitated at the door, her voice breaking again. What if he moves her? What if this is the wrong place? Dominic faced her fully, the truth unfiltered. We don't have the luxury of doubt. She swallowed and nodded, following him into the freezing darkness. Inside the depot yard, they moved between rusted freight cars, boots crunching softly against snow and gravel. Dominic's senses sharpened. Temperature shifts, distant echoes, faint motion in the shadows. Everything felt like a trap crafted by someone who knew his mind intimately. They reached the central warehouse, a towering skeleton of metal beams and broken windows. Dominic crouched, signaling silence. A faint glow pulsed from inside, rhythmic like a heartbeat. Light from a generator, a sign of life. He crept toward a shattered doorway, gun drawn, breath quiet. The interior stank of gasoline and old blood. Strings of dim work lights hung from the ceiling like nooses. And on the far side, beneath a metal catwalk, sat a table, cold, stainless steel, with something on it. Dominic's chest tightened. Sophia surged forward, but he caught her arm before she made noise. They advanced together, inch by inch. The closer they got, the clearer it became. It wasn't Isabella on the table. It was a decoy, an infant carrier stuffed with blankets, and beside it, a small speaker. Dominic's stomach turned just as the speaker crackled to life, Marco's voice dripping with venomous amusement. "I knew you'd pick this place first. You always were predictable." Sophia clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a cry. Vito cursed under his breath. Dominic didn't react. He couldn't afford emotional weakness here. The warehouse lights flickered violently, and then another voice joined the recording. Isabella's cry. Real, sharp, fragile. Sophia nearly collapsed, sobbing. Dominic steadied her, jaw locked. Marco's voice returned. "Don't worry, brother, she's close enough to feel your footsteps." A thud echoed somewhere deeper in the depot, a deliberate sound, a clue, or bait. Dominic moved toward the sound without hesitation, but halfway across the floor, a metallic click echoed from above. Every light in the warehouse snapped to full brightness. And on the catwalk, leaning over the railing, stood Luca, alive, armed, and wearing a smirk that confirmed everything Dominic feared. But Luca wasn't holding a gun. He was holding Dominic's phone, the one Marco used to contact him, and on its screen, a live video feed appeared. Isabella bound to a small cot, a countdown timer next to her ticking down mercilessly. 0 to 59:57. Luca raised 2 fingers to his temple in a mock salute, then whispered, "Welcome to the real game, boss." Luca pressed a button, and somewhere beneath the warehouse floor, a bomb detonator armed itself with a piercing beep, echoing like a death sentence through the depot. Dominic didn't waste a heartbeat. The shrill beep of the detonator vibrated through the warehouse floor like a warning pulse. but his mind sliced through the panic with lethal precision. Luca stood above them, drenched in the arrogant confidence of a traitor who believed he finally had leverage over the devil he used to fear. Dominic never lifted his gun toward the catwalk. He took in every bolt, beam, and shadow, mapping routes in seconds. The warehouse wasn't just wired with explosives, it was built into Marco's twisted stage design. Every flickering light, every echo, every sudden silence carried intention, sophisticated, calculated, a choreography of death. Marco spent years obsessing over, and Dominic understood instantly. This wasn't a rescue mission anymore. This was psychological warfare. Sophia's breath rattled behind him, the sound of a mother hovering on the edge of collapse. Dominic stepped slightly in front of her, shielding her body with his shadow without having to tell her why. Luca tapped the phone screen lightly, zooming in on the live feed. Isabella's tiny chest rose and fell under the dim light of the undisclosed room. The countdown continued its merciless drop towards 0. Luca spread his arms mockingly, voice snaking through the rafters. "Boss, why so tense? You've still got time." Dominic locked onto the tremor beneath Luca's smirk. This wasn't real confidence. This was ego inflated by fear. Marco had promised Luca protection, but Luca clearly didn't understand Marco's games as deeply as Dominic did. Marco didn't protect pawns. He sacrificed them. Dominic's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Where is she?" Luca laughed, forced and twitchy. "Oh, you know how Marco likes riddles. He said to tell you she's kept where loyalty died." Dominic's jaw tightened. That phrase carried history. Ugly, buried history. Sophia stepped closer, clutching Dominic's arm. "What does that mean?" Her voice trembled, but held a layer of steel. Dominic didn't answer her yet. He needed to think clearly. "Luca," he said, voice dropping into lethal calm, "you're in over your head. Marco sent you to stand in the blast zone." Luca's grin twitched. Dominic pressed harder. "You think he'll let you walk out alive? When this is done, you're just another loose end." Luca's jaw clenched. A flicker of doubt flashed in his eyes, the exact crack Dominic wanted. Vito emerged from behind a freight crate, gun raised, but Dominic signaled him to hold fire. Gunfire in a bomb-rigged warehouse was suicide. They had to shift Luca off balance with truth, not bullets. Dominic spoke again, voice steady but cold enough to freeze blood. "Marco doesn't give orders. He gives ultimatums. And you're nothing but a disposable message delivery boy." Luca snapped. "Shut up!" The phone wobbled in his hand. Sophia flinched as Isabella's cry echoed louder through the feed. Dominic leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Prove me wrong. Tell me where she is." Luca hesitated, long enough to confirm Dominic's analysis. The man was trembling under the weight of Marco's manipulation. But then Luca steadied himself with a cruel smile. "You don't get answers. You follow directions like he told you." He pulled a second remote from his pocket, waving it mockingly. "You're going to play the game right. Start walking to the north platform, alone." Dominic didn't budge. "Sophia isn't leaving my sight." Luca snorted. "She won't survive the next blast if she steps wrong. Marco said only you go. You try to outsmart him? Timer drops by 30 minutes. He pressed a button. The countdown on the phone accelerated. 02:59:57 became 02:29:57 in a blink. Sophia gasped, covering her mouth. Dominic pivoted instantly, fury ripping through his veins like wildfire. Marco wasn't bluffing. He'd wired in time adjustments. He wasn't just counting down to destruction, he was conducting a symphony of fear. Dominic grabbed Vito by the collar and dragged him close. "Take her back to the SUV. Keep her there. Engine running." Sophia jerked away from him. "No, I'm not leaving you." Dominic gripped her arms, eyes blazing with raw command. "You want Isabella alive? Then you stay out of Marco's line of fire." She shook her head violently. "I can help." "Not here," he snapped. Not while he's watching. She finally relented, but agony twisted through her features. Vito led her out, looking over his shoulder as though expecting Dominic to die the moment they separated. Dominic straightened, eyes fixed on the north platform, a shadowed corridor of corroded steel beams. Luca's laughter followed him like a taunt. Let's see if the legend bleeds tonight. Dominic moved forward with the controlled fury of a man who had outlived 100 ambushes. The north platform stretched long and narrow, lined with old freight containers coated in frost. As he advanced, lights flickered overhead, illuminating shapes behind the metal slats, crates, barrels, coils of wiring. Every footstep echoed into a void filled with engineered silence. Halfway down the platform, a spotlight slammed on, nearly blinding him. A figure stepped out. Not Luca, not Marco. A woman. Tall, sharp-eyed, armed. Agent Reyes. Dominic's blood iced. She leveled her pistol at his heart. "Salvatore, don't move!" Dominic didn't blink. "You're in the wrong place." Reyes stepped forward, face cold as concrete. "Actually, I'm in the perfect place. We've been tracking cartel chatter for hours. Someone tipped us off that you'd show up here." Dominic stiffened. Marco again. Using federal agents as pieces on the board. Reyes gestured with her gun. "Hands where I can see them." Dominic raised them slowly, calculating distances, exits, timing. Reyes was competent, but she didn't understand the disaster under her feet. "You need to leave," Dominic said. "Now." She ignored him. "You're under arrest." Dominic's laugh was humorless. "You have no idea what you're about to walk into. Save it," she snapped. "Where's the baby?" Dominic's expression darkened. "You think I'd be standing here if I knew?" Reyes didn't lower the gun. "We know your brother's alive. We know he's involved. You're going to tell me where he took the child." Dominic stepped forward, slow and deliberate. "Agent Reyes, if you don't leave this building in the next 10 seconds, everyone here dies. That countdown isn't a scare tactic." A faint beep echoed beneath them. Reyes flinched. "What was that?" Dominic's eyes lifted toward the ceiling beams where wires pulsed red. "Your death sentence," he answered. Before Reyes could react, a metallic slam reverberated from the far end of the warehouse. A gate dropped, heavy, electrified, sealing off the exit Sophia and Vito had used. Dominic's heart kicked hard. Marco's voice boomed through the loudspeakers, smooth, venomous, and soaked in satisfaction. "Dom, the only way out now is through me." Dominic spun around just in time to see a second screen flicker on above the platform. This one didn't show Isabella. It showed Sophia, standing beside the SUV. A red laser dot moved slowly across her chest. Marco's voice whispered through the speakers. "Choose, brother, the mother or the child." Dominic froze, every muscle in his body screaming with instinctual tension. Marco's voice had carved the impossible choice into the center of his chest. Sophia or Isabella? Neither option existed without consequence. The warehouse felt alive with danger. The metal beams groaned under the weight of snow and wind outside. The wiring pulsed with lethal intent, and the faint hum of electronics told him that every second brought him closer to disaster. He had to act. But how do you make a choice between the only two people in the world who mattered more than the blood in your own veins? Dominic's eyes darted between the two screens. Sophia's face was frozen with fear. Her hands tightened around a gun, unaware that it was a useless shield against Marco's orchestration. The other screen held Isabella, wrapped in a blanket, her tiny chest rising and falling, oblivious to the storm around her. Dominic's chest felt like it had been hollowed out. He turned sharply to the platform above, scanning for any tactical advantage. Agent Reyes had frozen, gun raised but unsure of which direction to cover. Dominic's mind ran through all options. He could charge up the platform and try to grab Sophia, but the explosive devices beneath them meant even one misstep could ignite hell. He could leap toward Isabella's location, But Marco had trained every operative, every electronic system to anticipate him. Every path, every step was a calculated trap. Dominic's hand brushed against his gun, then back to the platform railing, trying to stabilize the chaos in his mind. The countdown blinked. 020722. Time slipping faster than breathing. Sophia's screen shifted suddenly. Marco's silhouette appeared beside her, his presence a frozen threat. "Don't try anything foolish," Marco's voice hissed. "Every move you make triggers a consequence. I gave you fair warning." Dominic's teeth clenched. Marco's smugness was unbearable, but he had trained Dominic, shaped him, taught him how to read fear and manipulation. Dominic inhaled slowly, feeling every nerve pulse with lethal intention. "Marco," he growled, voice low enough to vibrate the beams. "You want me to choose? Fine, but the choice ends tonight." Marco's laughter echoed off the metal walls, sharp and cruel. Dominic's eyes flicked toward the north end of the warehouse. Shipping containers stacked high, forming narrow corridors. He had a plan, an almost impossible maneuver. He would create a diversion, draw Luca and Marco's operatives toward the decoy, then split their attention to retrieve Isabella. But executing it required absolute timing. One misstep, one wrong breath, and Marco would not hesitate to kill either Sophia or Isabella. Dominic shifted, calculating angles, timing every shadow, every echo. His pulse synced with the countdown. 2 hours, 5 minutes, 47 seconds. The seconds were merciless. He crouched behind a stack of crates, gun trained upward, eyes scanning the catwalk. Luca had already stationed operatives in strategic positions. Dominic could see the glint of barrels, the faint reflection of his flashlight on hardened faces. He whispered to Reyes, keeping his voice under the echoing hum. "Move left. Draw them to the east corridor. No one fires until I give the signal." Reyes hesitated, fear tightening her jaw. Dominic's stare froze her in place. "Do it. Lives depend on it." She swallowed, nodding, sliding along the metal flooring to execute his direction. The operatives shifted toward the east, predictably, as Dominic predicted. Timing was precise. Everything hinged on absolute focus. He sprinted along the platform, heart slamming, muscles screaming, and vaulted over a metal railing to the floor below. Sparks flew as he landed, knocking a loose crate into the operative's path, forcing a split-second distraction. The sound reverberated through the warehouse, a signal, and the chaos began. Bullets ripped across the floor. Dominic moved like a predator, dropping low, rolling behind crates, moving closer to Isabella's location. The countdown continued, flashing on the screen. 015711. His mind calculated distances, explosive placement, and the time it would take Marco to respond. Dominic's chest burned, every step a calculated risk. He rounded a stack of barrels and saw her, Isabella, bundled and crying, strapped to the cot. Relief surged like acid fire. Dominic dove, releasing the restraints with precise cuts from his pocket knife. Her small body cradled in his arms, he whispered her name, feeling a flood of emotion that was nearly paralyzing. Then a shadow loomed. Luca, gun raised, blocking Dominic's path. Dominic froze. Isabella in his arms. Luca smirked, firing a shot that shredded a nearby crate. Dominic rolled sideways, bullets whizzing past, heart hammering, and struck forward with a hard elbow to Luca's jaw. The man stumbled, but recovered quickly, weapon aimed again. Dominic didn't hesitate. A calculated kick sent him sprawling across the floor. The countdown ticked, 015236. Dominic's pulse synchronized with the wails of his daughter. He grabbed her closer, sliding behind cover. Bullets ricocheted, sparks flying, every shot a death sentence narrowly avoided. Above, Marco's voice boomed through speakers, cold and commanding. "Stop moving, Dominic, or she dies." Dominic's jaw clenched. "You're going to lose, Marco. I always survive." He rose slightly, exposing himself just enough to take aim at a support beam above Luca. A shot rang out, steel groaning, and the beam collapsed partially, crushing Luca beneath debris. Dominic's breath was ragged, Isabella pressed against his chest, tiny body trembling. He didn't have time to check if Luca lived. The explosive's faint hum echoed closer. Dominic sprinted, weaving, dodging, anticipating. The warehouse became a corridor of fire and metal, each heartbeat a gamble, each breath stolen from the jaws of death. He could see the exit faintly, lit by moonlight slicing through broken windows. One more stretch, one more move, and he could get Isabella to safety. Then the ground vibrated violently. A metallic roar surged from the floor beneath his feet. The detonator. Marco had rigged secondary explosives, timing them perfectly to the moment Dominic reached the exit. Dominic skidded to a halt, holding Isabella tight. He glanced behind. Crates shuddered, sparks flew, and the faint outline of Marco appeared at the catwalk railing, smirking with satisfaction. The warehouse trembled as the first explosion ripped through the northern section, fire and metal raining down, and Dominic realized the only path to survival was straight through Marco himself. The warehouse shook violently as flames devoured the metal beams, smoke filling every corner like a living, choking entity. Dominic's arms tightened around, Isabella feeling her fragile heartbeat against his chest. The countdown on the monitor ticked relentlessly, 10 minutes, but now his focus was absolute. Every sense sharpened, the smell of burning steel, the sharp hiss of sparks, the groan of stressed metal. Dominic's eyes scanned the catwalk above, knowing Marco's silhouette could appear at any second, ready to strike. But Dominic didn't hesitate. He had trained for this, planned for this, and this night was the culmination of every choice he had ever made. Flames licked at the edges of crates, sending sparks into the thickening smoke. He ducked beneath a collapsing beam, boots skidding over debris, Isabella clutched tightly. Each step toward the exit was calculated, precise, driven by desperation and love. Marco's voice boomed from the loudspeakers, taunting, promising death. But Dominic ignored it, moving like a shadow, a predator focused solely on the prize, his daughter. Then Marco appeared, stepping from the shadows onto the catwalk, gun raised. "You can't leave, Dominic. Not without her." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "You've already lost, Marco." He fired a precise shot at a steel support near the railing. Sparks flew, Marco staggered, and the catwalk trembled. Dominic seized the moment, sprinting toward the exit, weaving through falling debris, feeling Isabella's tiny body trembling against his chest. Behind him, the warehouse erupted. Explosions tore through the remaining structure, fire roaring like a living beast. Dominic pushed onward, every ounce of strength fueled by the thought of Sophia waiting outside. Then a shadow fell across the doorway. Marco lunged forward. Dominic twisted, throwing him off balance, and Marco tumbled backward into the inferno, his scream cut off by flames. Smoke swallowed him, and Dominic allowed himself a fleeting moment of grim satisfaction. Marco would not harm them again. Dominic burst through the doors into the night, snow falling over the fire-lit warehouse, cooling the heat, masking their escape. Isabella whimpered softly, and Dominic pressed her to his chest, whispering reassurances. His gaze searched the darkness. Sophia's figure appeared, running toward them through the snow. Dominic's heart leapt. "Sophia!" he shouted, and she didn't hesitate, throwing herself into his arms. Tears streaked her soot-covered cheeks, but her hands clutched both Dominic and Isabella tightly. "We're alive!" she sobbed, voice shaking with relief. Dominic hugged them both, finally allowing the weight of fear and adrenaline to drain. Around them, the warehouse smoldered, but they were safe. For the first time in years, he felt the pulse of peace, fleeting but real. Vito emerged from the shadows, nodding once, silently acknowledging that Dominic had won. Dominic looked at him, grateful but exhausted. "Go," he ordered softly. Take care of the rest. I'll handle the cleanup." Vito nodded and disappeared into the snowy night. The trio stood together, snowflakes settling on soot-streaked faces. Dominic kissed Sophia's forehead, then looked down at Isabella, smiling despite the dirt and blood. "You're safe now, baby girl," he murmured. Sophia rested her head against his chest, and for the first time since the nightmare began, they allowed themselves to breathe. Weeks later, under new identities in a quiet coastal town, the Salvatore family found true peace. Dominic had dismantled his criminal empire, giving testimony that crippled the cartel and protected his life. Sophia opened a small bakery, the smell of fresh bread filling the air, while Dominic worked beside her, not with guns or money, but with a steady, calm presence. Isabella grew strong and healthy, her laughter a constant reminder of their survival and love. On a snowy Christmas Eve 3 years later, Dominic watched Isabella tumble through the snow, giggling as Sophia joined her, arms outstretched. He felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Sophia, smiling warmly. "We made it," she whispered. Dominic nodded, eyes scanning the horizon, ever cautious but finally content. The past had tried to destroy them, but love, loyalty, and sacrifice had triumphed. And though the shadows of their old lives would always linger, in that moment nothing mattered but family, safety, and the promise of a future together. Dominic bent down, scooping Isabella into his arms, holding both Sophia and Isabella close, feeling a redemption that was finally, fully real. As they stood together, snow falling softly around them, Dominic's gaze caught a sleek black car parked across the quiet street, its windows dark. He tensed, instincts alive. But this time, he didn't flinch, because whatever threat awaited, he knew he wouldn't face it alone. If you like this story, please hit that subscribe button. It's not a click. It's a meaningful reward for me.